Well, everybody, welcome back once again to the podcast. I am your host, Pat Flynn, and joining me today is the man himself, Aleks, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin. We're going to talk about 7 generalist fitness standards that we think everybody should hit. Aleks, this is an appropriate conversation because I've actually been talking about this a bit with Dan John recently. Our previous episode just made the weightlifter's case for running, and part of what we talked about in that episode was how, look, a basic running standard and a basic running regimen, it helps keep you honest. It helps to fill gaps. It helps to ensure that, that you're just not deluded, right, in your sort of physical pursuits. It's important to know sometimes both not just what the problem is, but what the problem isn't, right? If you can deadlift 3 times your body weight, but you can't run a mile, the deadlift is no longer your problem. Right? It's just not your problem anymore. So what we want to do is we want to get some generalist standards out. These aren't crazy. They're not crazy. We think that they're all quite reasonable. You might have to work a bit to get there, but they are standards that sort of are spread across a range of different physical attributes and capabilities. There's some that are endurance related, some that are strength related, and some that, you honestly, you couldn't pull off unless you also have decent body composition, unless you're not too fatted out, right? Which is important for overall general fitness and health. And part of how I'm thinking about this conversation, Aleks, and I'll let you talk in, I don't know, probably about 20 minutes or so, is the notion that fitness and health should be coming together, right? They should not be at odds. And we know that when it comes to fitness, it is easy to hyper specialize and pursue fitness to such an extent that your health actually suffers. I mean, you don't have to look far at all to see this, right? Whether it's people who become obsessed with body composition or lifting a certain amount of weight, they often injure themselves. Sometimes they just kill themselves, right? That's not good. In the process of becoming more fit, because to be fit is just the ability to complete a task, to be able to perform something. Health, on the other hand, is sort of like that ideal interplay of the organs and bodily systems. Our philosophy, I know you share this with me, Aleks. If not, I'll kick you off the podcast right now, is that again, these things should come together. Your fitness pursuits should be improving your health. And by focusing on your health, that should sort of inform your fitness pursuits as well. So that's the background of this conversation. And all of these standards are meant to sort of fit into that juicy and lovely philosophy. Your opening thoughts, sir. Make them brief, please.
I agree.
Perfect. Now expand.
Well, yeah, I think the big thing to keep in mind is that a lot of people have a tendency to find something that they really like, and then they do that to the exclusion of all other things. And near as I can tell, now this might well be a phenomenon that's been around for a long time, but near as I can tell, it's sort of a newer phenomenon because, when I look at the training of some of the old school greats, one of the things that I notice is that a lot of them made it a point to do a lot of odd exercises that were not, like the sort of a thing that you even worried about periodizing or whatever. Like John Grimmick, I remember reading something about how he would go to the gym, and if he didn't feel like working out, he would just like make up some exercise. He might sit on the bench and like do some leg extensions with a dumbbell in between his feet, just to get some exercises in or what have you. So he wasn't like, oh, I can only do bench, squat, and deadlift, and I think that there is a tendency for people to do that sort of a thing in all spheres. So with kettlebells, you see it a lot, like swings and get-ups only. And barbells, it's, again, bench, squat, and deadlift only. Calisthenics, it's, chin-ups and dips, and then nothing for the legs, because let's be honest, most calisthenics fanatics are not doing a lot with their legs.
Look like roosters.
So it is very true. You have to be well-rounded. You have to have something to focus on, but it doesn't mean that all other things have suddenly become verboten. So you need to have good general fitness in good general health in order to be truly well-rounded.
Yeah.
And limiting yourself to just, let's say, only kettlebells and no running, or only running and no kettlebells, insert whatever combination you want. It's just a recipe for long-term disappointment.
Yeah. All right. So guys, a couple things. Put your questions and comments below. Aleks and I will do some Q&A at the end, so hit us up with whatever you got. Secondly, I also want to announce that on my end, and Aleks will get to promote what he's doing at the end, I got a big Strong On special sale coming up tomorrow. So if you're not on my email list, pay attention to that, because we're doing our big anniversary celebration sale. So that's not related. It is related to this conversation because it's all generalist programming. And finally, just to summarize what Aleks said, humans are, we sort of just naturally are generalists, right? We're not as handsome as the ape. We're not as efficient, as the salmon. But yet we're sort of the king of the world. Why? Because we're so adaptive and we're so generous, and we don't smell as good as the horse, right, Aleks? But we've got opposable thumbs. So we're going to make the generalist case here. And in fact, we're not going to waste any more time. So mark it down now, around 5 minutes and 30 seconds. We're getting into our generalist fitness standards. I know people like the time marks in the show notes. So there you go. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of these. We're going to explain what they are. And then we're going to give a little bit of justification. Why are we including this standard? Of course, we could have included others, and we could have modified these a little bit. So consider these kind of general ideas, general directions to shoot towards. There could be others, but this should be enough to get you guys started and help focus your pursuit. So let's begin with the first one, Aleks. And our list here, we have 5 pull-ups. 5 pull-ups. So let me say a few things about pull-ups first, and then we'll get your thoughts on it, because I'll just reiterate what I've said on previous podcasts. I think being able to do a handful of pull-ups, and I'll be upfront, guys, a lot of these standards we have men in mind. So we'll give some modification recommendations for women as well. There are differences, believe it or not, general, even if there are exceptions to the rule. So 5 pull-ups. I think this is a good standard. Again, it's realistic. It's not something that would take a lifetime to achieve, but being able to do 5 pull-ups keeps you honest, and it shows that you have a lot of things sort of going right, going good for you. Again, you can't be too fatted out. The person who maybe like a big, real fat dude can do like 1 pull-up, but 5 is probably not going to happen, right? So kind of body composition generally has to be there to be able to do, 5 good dead hang pull-ups. You have to have good upper body strength, good pulling strength. You have to have good grip strength. You have to have really good shoulder mobility. These are all good things to have, right? And they're all sort of demonstrated and need to be there to be able to just crank out a good set of 5 dead hang pull-ups. So to me, this is an obvious standard for demonstrating a collection of generalist qualities and keeping yourself honest too. I think being able to maintain 5 pull-ups is something that no matter what your kind of goal is at the time, whether you're trying to gain muscle or strength, I think this is a standard that's reasonable enough that you should be able to maintain kind of no matter what your current area of focus is. So your thoughts, good sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in addition to some of the things that you mentioned, like, having good upper body strength, obviously not being too overweight, there are other benefits to pull-ups that I think are especially salient for us nowadays. And one of those things is that, in generations past, we might have had to do more climbing or hanging from things like that. And so our shoulders are made to do that in a variety of different ways. And in order to keep them healthy, or in order to keep really any part of your body healthy, you have to use it in the way that it was designed to be moved. So you could look at it like this. Your body is made to do certain things and able to do certain other things. So like we're made to move, and we're able to exercise. So in some ways, exercise is like a distilled version of movement in general. And the way that we can look at pull-ups is very similar. It's kind of like a distilled version of like climbing and hanging. And these are things that, again, were just kind of an everyday part of life. Not necessarily, like rope climbs or, rock climbing, but it could have been as simple as, scaling a ladder or, climbing up a wall to do some repairs or things like that. So it is replicating a very important skill that used to be something that we would expect to do a lot more often. And just not even, for bragging rights of being able to do pull-ups or that, to demonstrate that you have somewhat low body fat. It's also simply honoring what your body is designed to do. And this is one of the more overlooked of all of these things, because there are plenty of other things that we're going to be looking at here that you could say roughly the same thing about, but I think few of them get ignored as much as hanging, climbing, and that sort of a thing.
Yeah, excellent. Would you modify this standard for our female listeners, Aleks?
I would say, for women, because it's a lot of them have grown up to think they just can't do any pull-ups, or that pull-ups are a man's game or whatever. I think the main thing to focus on would be just getting 1, not because there aren't plenty of women who could do a lot more or weighted pull-ups or anything like that. But, I think most men have it in mind. I really should be able to do pull-ups. And if I can't, I'm kind of
not a man. Just not
Yeah,
a
and then
man.
with women, it's I think the reverse. It's that pull-ups are something that I don't know if I could ever really do those. I never did them when I was a kid. I heard women are not good at pull-ups. So just focusing on getting that one will show you that you can do more. And I think a lot of it has to do with just, like the head trash that we get told or that we tell ourselves. And I think they can drive both men and women, but you think you kind of have to focus on the conversation going on in the individual's head before you
Head
can.
trash. That's a
Yes.
good phrase. I like that. Okay, very good. Thank you. Let us keep moving on now. And again, gentle listeners, please post your questions below and let us know your own generalist fitness standards as you've concocted them. We'd like to hear that. Okay, moving on to our second standard now. Let me consult the list. We have push-ups, but the prescription is 20 reps. I'm going to let you go first, Aleks. Why? Because this is the one that you wrote down.
Mhm.
Why push-ups and why 20 reps, specifically that?
Well, first and foremost, push-ups fundamentally are what? It's like getting up off the ground. So what can be more functional, if we want to use that term, than being able to push yourself up off the ground? Well, I would say push-ups definitely fall within the general list of skills that you need to be able to do, such as, rolling and, sitting up and all these other things. But with push-ups in particular, they're not, the reason I have it at 20 reps is because it's really not let's say a classic strength exercise. I think it's an exercise everybody should do. I think it's by all means something that is a very important skill to learn. But in particular, push-ups just seem to give you the most benefits when you do them for higher reps. And 20 is not really asking all that much. 20 push-ups is, pretty easy to achieve, I think, for most men. And in essence, once you can do 20 push-ups, it's easy to build up to doing, let's say, number one, doing more push-ups or more challenging push-up variations where you can lower the number of reps, such as elevating your feet and that sort of a thing. And it also plays very nicely with pull-ups because your chest has to get engaged when you are doing pull-ups, at least in the last half, in order to kind of help you get the chin over the bar. And it's just a very, very good general skill to have. Again, looking at it in terms of fitness skills, if you can't do push-ups, you have a really serious deficit in your upper body strength. That said, you can use them in order to improve other things that you're interested in improving, such as a military press. So if you want to look at it from the exercise standpoint, that's a very good way to do it. But then also from, again, looking at the movement side of things, like we did with the pull-ups, again, the ability to get up off the ground with ease is very important. And if you can do 20 push-ups in a row, odds are, you've probably don't have too many problems getting up and down off the ground, which bodes well for your general longevity.
Right. So push-ups, good. For me, being able to do 20 push-ups indicates a lot of things. One of the things is that you're sort of knitted well together, right? With the push-up, you should be moving really as just a very solid plank, right? So we're looking for that crown to coccyx alignment, core is engaged, and we're talking, good full range of motion, elbows or they don't have to be like direct. I don't think you have to do like directly pin them to the body, but relatively close, right?
Trying to never pin them to the body.
Yeah, no, generally not. Relatively close. I take a slight angle there myself. A little bit of a flare, but not like this, right? Not like that.
Yeah.
And trying to keep forearms vertical. Hands, I think the key, not just having elbows, elbow position, but is forearm position and hand position. We really want to look at those forearms being pretty much vertical throughout, which means your hands will probably be placed lower than you think, which is good. It's going to make the push-up a lot more challenging for the core and the pecs, and probably closer to your sternum than you think. So when I look for 20 good push-ups, I mean 20 good push-ups, right? Where the body is moving together as a solid unit. There's no worming. There's good shoulder mechanics. There's a vertical forearm. If you can do 20 of those, that shows, again, to me, it's not like I'm calling the Guinness Book of World Records. That's not what any of these standards are about. It just means, okay, you've checked a number of boxes. We've got a number of things that are going well for you here. And again, this is a standard I think you should be able to maintain for pretty much most of your life. Maybe we'll start making exceptions once you're 97 years old or something like that. But for most of your life and through most of your pursuits, it seems like an absolutely reasonable and worthwhile standard to have on the books there. So very, very good. Shall we move on to the next one, Aleks? Anything else I'm going to cover about that?
I think that covers it. Let's do it.
All right. Next one is an actual weightlifting one. We've got military press. That's overhead military press, 5 reps each arm with the 24 kilogram. That's just the old RKC standard. So why is this on there? Aleks, what are the benefits of this? And justify this for us. Mm-hmm.
Similar to pull-ups, with the ability to put your arm overhead and do so with strength, or at least move with strength while they're overhead. I think that you need to have a corollary, and the military press is great for that. Really, the military press is a classic strength move for a reason. There's just something about putting a heavy weight overhead that requires, or that not only builds a lot of strength, but also requires that you be pretty well knit together. And I know Dan John has talked about this, where everything in your body is going to have some sort of a role to play, whether it's stabilizing or actually moving so that the weight can get overhead. 24 kilos is really not anything crazy for most men. I think even kind of men with smaller builds, it's certainly a very reasonable standard to achieve. Now, obviously, if you're quite a bit larger, that might be small potatoes. So you'll be able to, start maybe looking at heavier weights. But for average size men, I think 24 kilos, 5 reps per side is very good. The reason we didn't do double kettlebells is it's a little bit more advanced, and we want to look at standards that you should hit first. And so clearly, a pair of 24s would certainly be good. But one of the other things that we want to look at in using one arm at a time is what discrepancies are there with strength, mobility, coordination. It's going to give you a lot of information that you might not otherwise have. And it's not just in the shoulder girdle. It can even be, in the core, for instance, and elsewhere. So that was the rationale behind that. It is a stepping stone to heavier lifting, but you want to have some sort of let's say like a quasi test to see the differences between the sides, what things you might need to remedy, and what things you're doing well on, and whether it's strength oriented, mobility oriented, or something different.
Good. Yeah. One thing I want to point out about these standards, and I think part of what makes them both generalist but worthwhile, is that they are things that most people are going to have to put effort to achieve, right? Most of these standards are difficult enough that the vast majority of people aren't going to be able to perform them just by default, say by not having a completely dysfunctional, unhealthy childhood, right? But that being said, they are generalist standards. They're not hyper special standards. They shouldn't take you years and years to achieve, for example, right? So most people, if you've never done military pressing before, most men of average size, probably you're not going to be able to get the 24 up for 5 reps. You do have to work towards it, but it's a reasonable goal that could be achieved in a reasonable amount of time without enormous costs. And I think it comes with an enormous number of benefits. Again, good military press, we're looking at vertical forearm is a good cue for all pressing, right? Whether you're bench pressing, push-ups, or military press, that vertical forearm. And by vertical, I mean, for those of you who are watching, right, that your forearm literally stays in a straight line throughout. That's going to help you find that good groove rather than this sort of broken arm wrestling position, right? And to justify the kettlebell military press, especially the single kettlebell military press, is it will demonstrate good shoulder mobility to get in that full overhead position. But since we're just using one kettlebell and you can sort of freely rotate through the movement, you're not locked onto a barbell. It's a more open movement. I think this movement is going to be generally more accessible to people with different shoulder structures. So there's going to be less sort of structural barriers to this than there may be with other forms of military pressing. Barriers that might be legitimate barriers that have nothing to do with your fitness efforts. They just have to do with your the structure of your shoulders. So that's another reason I think to prefer the single kettlebell military press. 5 reps of 24 kilogram, good standard to work up to. Shows a lot of things sort of have to be there. Again, we're talking strict, just upper body grind, no lower body push press effort. And for women, I would say 12 to 16 kilogram as the modification there. Aleks, would you agree with that? You better.
I do. I do. I think that's a very reasonable thing to have said.
All right. Very good. Thank you. You are on my turf, by the way.
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't want to get kicked off. That would be very awkward.
I got my finger on the button, buddy. All right. Next one is front squats. And this one, we are having 2 kettlebells, Aleks. We've got 2 24 kilogram kettlebells. And the rep prescription here is a little interesting. 15 reps with 2 24 kilogram kettlebells. I like this. I like this very much, Aleks. Do you want to talk about it first, or do you want me to?
Sure. Number one, we went a bit heavier and we also went a bit higher rep for just a couple of very simple reasons. The number one, squat is in there because it is just such a fundamental movement to what it means to be human. I mean, it's the natural human resting position. It's something that you can learn very quickly. I mean, kids do it just as a matter of course. Nobody needs to really teach them, and it's that they forget how to do it later on in life, often due to having been jammed in desks for 8 hours a day for however many years. And because the squat is so technically simple, I mean, again, there are techniques that you have to consider, or there's technique that you have to keep in mind while doing them, but nothing all that crazy or out of the ordinary. That it's really, if you get good at front squats in particular, there are other kinds of squats. Like if you want to do barbell back squats, those will become easier once you've learned the front squat. I think the front squat's a lot simpler to learn. And the reason why we're going a little bit heavier and for higher reps is that, again, squats just lend themselves, and your legs in general lend themselves to a great deal of strength. There's no reason why you should be, like totally top heavy in your strength and, have all this abilities with your upper body and not be able to outdo that in terms of your lower body strength. So this one will be a little bit more of a stretch for a lot of people to do, both in terms of, mobility and technique and just pure strength.
Yep.
But it's achievable by pretty much everybody. And I don't really think you need any super specific program to get there. You just need to start squatting and keep squatting.
Yeah. So let me motivate this a little bit further. What I love about the 15 reps is arguably those last 5 reps. Like if you can do 10, I think with 24, you almost certainly can do 15. The difference is just going to be total mental grit and concentration at that point, right? Now, 2 by 24 kilogram in the kettlebell front squat is not a ton of weight, but if you've ever done high rep front squats at all, even with a moderate amount of weight, like they become pretty miserable pretty quick. By the time you're at 10 reps, your heart is really going to be pounding. There's a saying like there's no better cardio than just traditional front squats. That's definitely true, right? So you have this sort of long stroke of movement, deep squat. With the kettlebell front squat, what's cool about that is you're not directly loading the stanchion of your skeleton like a back squat. So I think it's again, probably a smarter move for most people to do. You have to wrestle the weight out in front of you and use that sort of anaconda strength that Dan John says. Keep the core super engaged, really good controlled breathing, and maintain that very tall posture. Great posture exercise. So I think those extra reps demonstrate to me a sort of ability, and this is a great ability to have, of poise under pressure. Because I think sort of mentally things are going to want to break down before physically they have to, right? And I think there's that like just even those extra 5 reps, I think is a good demonstration of that. So I'm happy with this standard. I think 15, where your 15th rep, this is key, looks as good as your first rep. That's the standard. Same tempo, same depth, same posture. Not that you just got 15 reps done, but your 15th rep should look as slick and as smooth as that first rep. So we're looking at qualitative aspects here, not just quantitative. So there you have it. 15 reps at the front squat, 2 by 24 kilogram. Hope you guys like that. By the way, I see lots of good comments here, so we'll do Q&A at the end, but let's get through these standards first. We've got 3 more to go. The next one is turning from a squat to a hinge. Aleks, we have down 100 swings in 5 minutes with a 24 kilogram kettlebell. Oh, real quick, by the way, for the front squats for ladies, again, I would just modify 12 to 16 instead of 24 for the front squats. Aleks, you agree with that? I know you do. 100. All right. So next one, 100 swings in 5 minutes with the 24 kilogram. Why is this on the list, Aleks? What is this standard? Talk to me about it.
Well, first and foremost, it's quite achievable. You often I don't think you really need any specific program to lead you up to it. You just need to swing, and be doing it on a routine basis. But the good thing about it is manifold. Now, obviously, swings are the center of the kettlebell universe. So they carry a lot of weight in terms of other skills that you might want to build up, such as cleans, high pulls, snatches, other like ballistic kettlebell drills. The other thing is that, again, it's like, as Dan John has called them, the fat burning athlete builder. They just work wonders at teaching you how to move through your hips, use explosive power, and do so with really no impact. A lot of people think about explosive lower body power and they think about jumping or sprinting, other things like that. Obviously very good movements, but they can be a little more challenging to train for everyday folks. particularly because they require some degree of impact when you land. So that's one of the things that I like a lot about swings. Now, the other thing in terms of why this standard specifically is that it demonstrates that you have good enough, cardiovascular capacity that even if it's just for 5 minutes, you can do enough intervals that are going to allow you to get in 100 good quality reps. And then beyond that, I would also say that the ability to do that even under what will presumably be some degree of fatigue is certainly going to be helpful, because if you can do 100 reps in 5 minutes of something and maintain good technique, which is precisely what you're going to have to do if you're doing any of these standards, you're going to need to use good technique, then it will almost certainly be the best place to start before you try to do, let's say, 100 snatches in 5 minutes, is going to be doing 100 swings in 5 minutes. And really what that breaks down to is 10 swings every 30 seconds. So you can do 10 swings, set it down. When the next 30-second mark comes up, pick it up, do it again. You can do 20 swings in 30 seconds, set it down for 30 seconds. There are a lot of ways that you can do it. So you can kind of play to your strengths, at least initially. And, provided you can maintain good technique for all 100 of those reps, even if the difficulty starts builds up a lot of mental and physical toughness in addition to providing you with a good benchmark for what to do next.
Yeah, and not only that, but to just kind of connect the pieces of this generalist puzzle, you'll notice that the front squat effort, that's a grindy effort, but it still is an endurance effort for 15 reps, but it's a different type of endurance effort than the kettlebell swing 5-minute endurance effort, right? So we're kind of hitting different parts of the capacity spectrum here. And as we'll see, we actually have a running one coming up next. And to me, that's what generalism is all about, having this sort of robust general physical capacity, right? Not just being good at one thing, but good to great, or at least fairly competent across a very broad domain of different things. So I think the 5-minute swing test fits really well in there. And of course, it's going to be a nice contrast to the squats. It's important to get these mechanical patterns down, that the swing is going to help us pattern that hinge where the hips are primarily going back. The squat, of course, where the hips are primarily going down. And the front squat especially is really good, because with the back squat, there is a bit more of a hinge element. With the front squat, you really are just learning to pull your torso between your legs and get into that utterly primitive monkey pattern, the monkey squat, the brute, as they say. And with the hinge, you're kind of reaching your butt back to the wall behind you, very much posterior chain dominated. Front squat, more emphasis on the anterior chain. I mean, both hit both, right? Of course, but there's emphasis. So very good. Brutes, as they say. Brutes. All right. I'm going to switch the last two around, Alex. That way we can get the other endurance one in here first. And that is a, quote, quick and easy mile run. So I'll say a few things to build off of what was mentioned yesterday with Dan John. I'll just reiterate some of those points to look at your thoughts on it. Yesterday, I said that I think everybody should be able to do just like a quick and easy mile run. And what does that mean? Like, a mile run should kind of be able to be a warm-up for you. And if you can do a quick and easy mile run, 7-ish minutes or less, say, and it feel like a warm-up, like feel like that wasn't like the thing that drained you for the rest of the day, but that was the thing that got you going for the harder stuff. That's the goal we're looking for. Once you get to that, that tells me you have a lot of things going for you. Again, you've got good capacity, your joints are working well, you're not too fatted out. And of course, a mile run is not that demanding. I think that if you're in good general shape, it should be the sort of thing that does warm you up. It sort of energizes you rather than depletes you. It's something you can do frequently without worrying about sort of overtraining at some point, even daily. You don't have to do it daily. But for me, pretty much whenever I'm at the gym, we've got that circular track around the Y. That's just part of the warm up, right? Boom, boom, boom. I think it's, 11 rotations around that track is a mile or so. All the Ys are inconsistent with it. Every Y I've been to, it's 11 or 15 or something. Anyways, a mile run, good standard to have. You got to have, it's again, something that you kind of have to work up to. I remember back in the old middle school physical fitness exams, I couldn't just do a mile run back then. That was like it's actually like a good point of contrast. Did you have those in middle school, Alex?
Yeah.
So
I was not all that athletic in middle school. So the best I ever did was I think 7 minutes and 20 seconds.
Okay. I would almost always walk it, because I was a big fat.
Fatty fat.
Yeah. Big fat in middle school. Right. I did have that super dysfunctional childhood, like just totally libertarian, and like how much I could eat and the number of video games and TV I could watch. So I could never do the mile run. I had to always walk the stupid thing. I could never do the pull-ups. They did have a pull-up thing. Could never do that. But I could always crush and dominate the sit-up component, which just goes to show like how utterly useless. Like clearly I should not have been getting good marks on any sort of physical fitness exam. But I would just dominate that. I would just curl my fat, sluggy body again and again and again. And people would gather around. They would ooh and ah, and they were just absolutely amazed. And those were the glory days, my friend.
It's all downhill from there.
But anyways, yeah, we are not putting the sit-up exam on here, but we are keeping the mile run. So give us your thoughts on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think running is really one of the most fundamental of all human movements. And I know that, and I was guilty of this in the kettlebell world for a long time. There was kind of like poo-pooing the idea of running, like, oh, I'm not going to run unless someone's chasing me. But the reality is that if you can't run, you're missing out on a very important part of what it means to be human. Now, I'm not like a running coach, and so I don't really talk too much about running, but I do think that general gait pattern training is very, very important. So whether it's stuff that leads up to easier running, like marching and skipping, and obviously, on the heavier side of things, loaded carries, even crawling, these are all things that can help make it a bit easier for you to run, so that when you decide you're going to, put yourself to the test, you'll be a little bit better put together to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But bottom line, yeah, I think that if you can't run or you can't maintain a decent pace for at least a mile, you might be strong, but you can't really lay claim to being in any sort of shape.
Right. Yeah. Very, very good. Okay. We have one more here, Aleks, and that is a 1-minute hollow hold. Explain to us what the hollow hold is and why you wanted to put that as our final generalist fitness standard.
Well, everybody wants something for the core, and they always appeal to things for whatever reason. When it comes to core training, people either appeal to sit-ups, like what you talked about, or the plank. People, for some reason, think the plank is like a core exercise, and I don't get it. I mean, obviously, there's a core element to it, but if you're doing it properly, it should be firing up all the muscles in your body. And I don't feel like the core is most likely to be the one that's going to get the biggest amount of bang for the buck. Hollow position is very different because similar to the plank, while it requires you to engage every muscle in the body, it really, really hones in on the core specifically. And because it's the key gymnastic strength posture, if you have any ambitions at all at getting better at pull-ups, push-ups, pistol squats, really anything, then you're going to have to get good at some of the foundational stuff. And the foundational stuff, I mean, it doesn't get much more foundational than hollow position hold. I've seen a lot of people make huge, huge improvements by learning how to do it. If you can hold it for at least a minute, again, you've got enough strength and work capacity to be able to apply that to other things. And you have enough body awareness too, because you realize, oh, I'm starting to lose it. I'm starting to kind of open up. I got to tense back up, or, my legs are starting to sag, or my arms, or whatever it may be. There's just no letting up while you're doing it. It really is something that requires a lot of focus, even if there's no actual dynamic element to it. So to satisfy the understandably ambitious core training crowd, I definitely recommend the hollow hold over other, let's say, ab movements. It's going to set the stage for more advanced ones, again, like L-sits, leg raises of all different kinds. And if you can do that, you can do the plank and you can do sit-ups. So there's really no reason to train these other things. This is like a good kind of like a catch-all core drill for a lot of people.
I emphatically agree. It's super functional. So there you have it, gentle listeners. Let's summarize again, then we'll take some questions. The 7 generalist fitness standards are 5 pull-ups, 20 push-ups, 5 military press with a 24-kilogram kettlebell, 15 front squats with 2 24-kilogram kettlebells, 100 swings in 5 minutes with 24-kilogram kettlebell, a quick and easy mile run, we said about 7 minutes-ish or less, and a 1-minute hollow hold. So I would love to hear from all of you. How many of these standards can you hit right now? If you were to just stand up from your computer and then just go right to the gym and attempt these, how many would you hit? Be honest. Let us know below. Have we made them too easy? Have we made them too difficult? Give us your feedback and let us know what you would recommend yourself in the comments below. And now it is time for questions. It's
time to take your dumb questions, folks.
Yeah, man. Can we just get one good one for once? Goodness gravy.
Where should we start?
All right. Anthony says, as not every workout must be an all-out hard workout, How do you know when you're making your workout intense enough to ensure gains and not just, quote, going through the motions? I thought we said no dumb questions. Just kidding. This is actually a really good one, Alex. Respond to our gentle listener, Anthony, here.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that there are a couple of primary variables that you're going to want to look into manipulating. So the first one most people think about would be intensity, and that means like how heavy a weight is or how difficult an exercise is. Another one would be volume, or total number of reps that you're doing. Another one would be density, which is the amount of work being done in a given amount of time. And you're going to have an easier time, I think, manipulating, like figuring out a basic intensity level for your let's say kettlebells and calisthenic stuff, and then going from there and manipulating the volume. So what that means is, let's say you find we'll take examples from what we've worked on in this specific topic, where we're going to look at some of the general standards. Let's say you can do 5 front squats with a pair of 24 kilo bells, 1 pull-up, and maybe 10 push-ups, right? So that's your base level. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to have a day where you do a lot more reps of these things or variations. So maybe, with the front squat, maybe you'll do something like, let's say, goblet squats with a 32 or with a 24, and you do between 5 and 10 reps instead of just only working on the front squats. Let's say with the pull-ups, if you can really only do 1, you might do stuff like flexed arm hangs, dead hangs. You might kind of fill in the gaps a little bit with like feet assisted pull-ups or with bodyweight rows or something of that nature. And you want to pick something that's going to help prepare you to better practice the movements that you're going to want to hit in the standards. Again, this being the example. And again, what I would do is I would just say some days you're going to do more reps, some days you're going to do a moderate number of reps, and some days you'll do fewer. So a good way to do that is on the hard day, maybe you do like 4 times the amount of what you could do in a given set. So if you can do 10 push-ups, maybe you would do like 40. If and on a medium day you would do 30, on an easy day you would do 20, and however many sets it takes to get that number in. And then as the weeks go on, you just try to hit the same numbers with slightly fewer sets, if at all possible. And once you've reached a reasonable number, or you can't keep reducing number of sets, then you start increasing sets. You do the same amount of reps per set, but then you add a set on, and then you do that for a couple weeks, test yourself, and there you have it. There you be. That's awesome. A good general overview, I think.
Okay, let's take one more question, not because I want to ignore the gentle listeners, but because I actually want to try and not have every episode of my podcast be 2.5 hours long. And I've got a book to write. So let's take one from Wevi. Wevi Keen says, what should my neck be doing during a squat? I sometimes find myself tensing up my neck under the strain, but is that good? Is that bad? Or is that something that's just going to happen no matter what? What do you think, Alex?
It's definitely bad, and it also makes you a bad person, Levi. So let's keep that amply in mind. Pat agrees. I don't exactly know why your neck is tensing up. My guess is it's just like and again, this is just purely a guess. Could be just you're just used to doing that while you're straining. And generally speaking, in your training, you want to try to keep your neck and your face relaxed, and you want to try to keep your tension below. So it could be just a bad habit. It could be that it really only starts happening once the sets are getting more difficult. So let's say you're doing front squats, and let's say 10 is maybe your max with a given amount of weight, and you're getting to, maybe you're pushing the sets a little too hard. So rather than doing, let's say, something that you can build up like sets of 5, maybe you're always trying to hit like 8 to 10 reps each time, and then that habit just comes in and bites you in the butt, as it were. What I would say is just number one, be aware of it and try to relax the neck, because again, the neck and the head should be more or less relaxed while you're doing this. The other thing, and this is just a technical thing that might make it a little bit easier, maybe there will be a little bit less strain as you're squatting, is to look slightly upward. So it's like when you're in the squat position, look up as though you're looking at someone, you're looking like eye level at somebody who's just a little bit taller than you. That can kind of help make it a little bit easier to get your neck in a good position. And, you're not trying to like look up at the ceiling or anything like that. But I see a lot of people just kind of lackadaisically looking at the floor, or just, they don't know what to do with their head and neck while they're squatting. That's the recommendation that I give people. So apart from the possibly just bad habit of, like gritting your teeth or tensing your neck to help you out, things that will certainly help, but can take a bit of a toll. Try to actively relax it, and then just when you're squatting, keep your eyes slightly above what you normally do. So look up just a little bit. That'll probably take care of a good deal of the strain.
Excellent. Okay, before we go, Aleks, what do you want to mention? What do you want to plug? Tell people about your good podcasts, all that, and then I have a few announcements of my own, but you go first.
Well, definitely check me out on the Hammercast. I've got a daily podcast that goes out. So just look at wherever podcasts are listened to, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, it's all over the place. The Hammercast is the name. And of course, one of the things we talked about here today was, for instance, running, which I'm sure a lot of people don't really do a lot of, maybe don't necessarily want to do a lot of, but at least want to be good enough at, so that, when the time comes, they can do it. Again, as I mentioned, the gait pattern is a big factor in that. So I've got a challenge, the 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge, that focuses on using bodyweight strength movements to help improve your gait pattern for full body coordination and strength and ninja skills and, all sex appeal, whatever you want. Go to 9minutechallenge.com. That's the number 9minutechallenge.com. You can get your own free copy, and you can toss it in with whatever else you're doing. So it's designed to be done in conjunction with your regular training, not as something that requires you to put all your other training off to the side.
Beautiful. Well, we got more freebies coming at you. I want to remind people that you can also grab my free collection of 101 kettlebell workouts at 100. That's the number is 101 kettlebellworkouts.com. And that'll get you on my email list, which is where all the really special action happens, where all the really best stuff is shared. And that'll be good timing, because tomorrow we're doing a really big anniversary sale in celebration of Strong On. So we've got some new challenges coming up and just a lot of really cool generalist, minimalist kettlebell workouts and challenges that you'll definitely want to take advantage of. It'll be the biggest sale we do all year on this. So hop on my email list and be notified about that tomorrow. Either way, get yourself 101 free kettlebell workouts at 101kettlebellworkouts.com. Aleks, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys